Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video. I'm very excited to be making this video because it's the first video I'm making since we've hit 1,000 subscribers. So I want to take the time to thank everybody who has watched the video, who has liked, who has commented, who has subscribed, who's engaged with the videos of the channel at all. It means a lot to me and I'm very grateful for the support. I mean, I've only made this channel for really two reasons. One was to effectively document our learning journey, and the second was to create a community, which we certainly have done. Especially over recent videos where you've got beginners who are starting their e-learning journey, and then you've got people who are experienced, who have been, programming in C for decades, and they're sharing their little bits of knowledge then and wisdom, bestowing that upon us. So it's been fantastic, and I just want to thank everybody for effectively showing your support. It just means a lot to me. I've been away on holidays. I was in Greece, come back. It's hotter here in the UK than it was in Greece. So, apologies if I got the sunlight on my face or if I, kind of don't seem full of energy. I've literally got back within 24 hours and I really wanted to record a video. Hence why we are looking at another programming language, the Zig programming language. Now, the last video, I talked about how I wanted to look at Odin, play around with it. And I think some people were upset the fact that it seems like I was deviating away from C, and that is not the case. I promise you that I will have a C programming video up, hopefully in the next week. Certainly by the end of next week. And that's not the case. I'm not deviating. I will stay on the C programming content. That is a priority for me. But just because I've got back in such a short amount of time, I really wanted to record a video, and I thought this would be a fun one to do. Off the cuff, we're going to kind of look at what Zig is and why it's used by a lot of great people. I think programming in this day and age is very, very exciting, despite all of the controversy around, AI and such like that. The systems programming space is really cool because you have a great number of programmers who, are creating fantastic tools and technologies and sharing their insights. And there's a platform on YouTube now and a bunch of great different podcasts where people go on, and great personalities colliding together, and I love it. So, I initially heard of Zig when I watched a podcast with Mitchell Hashimoto. I believe it was on the stand-up I'd first heard of Mitchell Hashimoto, and I talked about him a little bit in the last video. For those of you who don't know, I'll have a little blurb on the screen now about who he is. But I got really intrigued because he donates a lot of money. He donates somewhere between tens of thousands of dollars up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think he donated over $200,000 to the Zig Foundation. And that just intrigued me because I know he's a bright guy. I know he's a smart guy. I know he's done a lot. He's created a lot of interesting tools, from Ghosty, which I'm using here, all the way to Terraform and such like that. Okay, so real cool guy. He's donated a lot of money. I want to know a little bit more about it. His argument for using Zig is that he has fun using it, and I think there's no better reason to use a programming language than if you're having fun. It's often called the modern C. I think that's fair to say. I think Odin, is ergonomic. It removes the headaches of C. But Zig is effectively very simple. It's like the middle ground between C and Rust almost. At least that's how the Primogen kind of explained it. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about it. I love C and I'm going to continue using C, but I don't want to become a Luddite and not know what these tools and technologies are. So I can spend an hour learning it. That's no problem. And maybe go, more into it if I feel the need to in the future. But again, C is my main priority. Something that's interesting about Zig, okay, again, I've heard of it initially from Mitchell Hashimoto, but I've also came across a few talks by Andrew Kelly, who is the creator of Zig. I think one of them was with JetBrains, which was recent actually that came out. And the other one then was years ago, I think it was in the Go-To conference, where effectively he talked about Zig being not just a programming language, but also a tool chain, a framework as well. And I quite like the idea of that. Been a bit of controversy again in recent events with Bun rewriting to Rust. So Rust programming language, memory safe. We all know about that. But effectively Bun is like a front end framework as I understand it. Never used it. Don't really know what it is. But I know it was a big deal and people over X were being a bit hysterical about whether or not that was a silly idea. People on both sides. You can see Zig is actually using version 0.16, so it's not even got a stable release yet of 1.0. But listening to Andrew Kelly on the JetBrains podcast, he seems so calm and confident in the fact that he wants to take his time with things, and he's being very thorough. He's not allowing AI contributions to the programming language, which I also am a big fan of. He's ensuring that he's being very, calm and complacent in a time of uncertainty with AI, and I like that. So anyway, nonetheless, we're going to take a little look at this. We're going to create a simple hello world program, and we're just going to see what the language is, what it's about, how it differs from C, and just learn a little bit about it. There's some terms I never really come in touch with recently. So things like metaprogramming, I have an idea what it is, but I don't really know what it's about. So maybe we'll look into that. Comp time, I know the idea is, code executes at compile time. Imagine that's much faster. So, there's things that are going to be way over my head in this video. So in the comments, if I say anything daft, feel free to correct me. That's completely fine. So without further adu, let's get stuck into this then. I'm excited. So a simple language then, focus on debugging your application rather than debugging your programming language knowledge. Okay, so Zig then is effectively just removing a lot of the uncertainties that we experience with C. So there's no hidden control flow, no hidden memory allocations, no preprocessor, no macros. Okay, so C is giving you control, but it also gives you a way to shoot yourself in the foot, whereas Zig is giving you the control without the mystery behind it then. Okay, so there's no preprocessor, no macros, no hidden memory allocations, no exceptions, no operator overload, and so on. Okay, that's quite interesting. Again, something that effectively is going to be at the forefront of any language trying to build upon C, really, unless you C++, which is less complexity. So there we are. Anyway, comp time then. Comp time is effectively, as I understand it, code that is executing at compile time. I have written down a definition of this here. So comp time is a keyword and a phase in Zig. It forces the compiler to run a specific block of code, variable or function argument while compiling your app, rather than waiting for the app to run. So that's what compile time is then. There's also metaprogramming, which is effectively writing programs to treat other programs as the data. Now, I've seen an example of this in one of the talks that Andrew Kelly gave, where he's using files as data and such like that. So programs as data. So again, not too familiar with that. Not that much metaprogramming in my time, so I'm not too sure about that. But we'll come on to that at some point, I'm sure. Okay. Fresh approach to metaprogram based on compile time, code execution, and lazy evaluation. Call any function at compile time, manipulates types as values without runtime overhead, and comp time emulates the target architecture. Now, something I kind of breezed over then is the fact that Zig is a tool chain, not just a programming language. That's pretty interesting. So Uber uses Zig as effectively a way to cross-compile their code for different architectures. I think it's for ARM. Okay, so that's pretty interesting to me personally. I find that quite intriguing. Because it's not just a language. There's different ways in which you can get into it, and again, at the GoTo conference he talks about that. There's different levels in which you can get into Zig. You can use it as, I think there's Zig, so there's the Zig CC, there's Zig build, and there's the Zig programming language then. Okay, the thing that's nice about C as well is that it integrates really well with C and C++ that I've heard of. Again, I'm not too familiar, not that much with this. Incrementally improve your C and C++ Zig code base, so you can use Zig as a zero dependency drop-in C compiler. So effectively you can write a C program and compile it with a Zig compiler then. Suppose cross compilation out of the box. Leverage Zig build to create a consistent development environment across all platforms. Add a Zig compilation unit to C projects, exposing the rich standard library to your C++ code. So, right, from looking at Zig code just as is, it looks quite confusing compared to C in my opinion. So I want to make that very clear. Don't know much about Zig. I've not played around with it. I've not written a program in C. The only thing that I've done is effectively installed it, and I think I installed it a while ago, but I never got around to using it. I don't know why I'm typing Zig build. I meant to type in Zig version. So we can see I got the latest version, so we'll play around with it now. But yeah, so this is an example program then. Okay, so index.zig. So you can see this is how we import the standard library. Let's see what happens. Let's give it a go. We don't know if this is going to go well or if it's going to go bad, but I'll take a little look and see what I can do for you guys. So, Zig is a general purpose programming language and toolchain for maintaining robust, optimal, and reusable software. We've just read this. So robust means behavior is correct even for edge cases such as out of memory. Optimal, we can write programs the best way they can behave and perform. Reusable, the same code works in many environments which have different constraints. That seems pretty interesting, okay? And I can see how Uber have got the benefits from that, okay? And there was a little talk that, again, I'll put the images of the different, YouTube videos that I'm referring to on the screen, as well as trying to break down definitions as we go along, okay? But yeah, effectively Uber do use it for that purpose there. So it's the fact it's reusable. Maintainable then, so precisely communicate intent to the compiler and other programmers. The language imposes a low overhead to read in code and is resilient to changing requirements and environments. Often the most efficient way to learn something new is to see examples. So this documentation shows you how to use each of Zig's features. It is all on one page, so you can search with the browser search tool. The code samples in this document are compiled and tested as part of the main test suite of Zig. This HTML document depends on no external files, so you can use it offline. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So the Zig standard library then, so it has its own documentation, and we're not going to go over that really, but we can see that it's got a lot of information here about all the different things we can use inside Zig, so that's pretty cool. I'm just going to open the Windows section. It's absolutely scorching here in the UK, and we do not have the infrastructure for it, and anyone who's from the UK can absolutely relate to me, I'm sure. Something that Mitchell Hashimoto talks about, I think I mentioned this again in the last video, so I do appreciate that I sound like a massive fanboy of his, but again, just trying to learn from people who've got more experience, what can I say, is something that's good to do is read through the standard library, read through all the documentation, and things will just come back to you as we go along. I'm not going to go that deep into it today. We're just going to look at creating some simple programs. So let's get started then. So Zig standard library contains commonly used algorithms, data structures, and definitions to help you build programs or libraries. You will see many examples of Zig standard library used in this documentation. To learn more about the Zig standard library, visit the link above. We've already done that, and we won't look at it anymore. Alternatively then, the Zig standard library documentation is provided with each Zig distribution. It can be rendered via a local web server with Zig std. Okay, that's cool. So is that like, let's have a look at that. Zig. So what's this doing? Oh wow, yeah, okay. That's pretty neat. So it's almost like your own little man pages, but it just puts it in the browser. So if I was offline, then I can do that, which is quite nice. That's quite cool. So yeah, anyway, that's that. How do we get out of this? So, there we go. Right, so the first thing we're going to want to do then is, let's just make a directory. We'll just call it Zig for now, and we're going to move into that, and then we're going to do nvim, let's just do zig.hello is a hello.zig, sorry. Great. Okay, so I'm excited to do this because there's nothing better than just doing a hello world program in another language. You feel like you've mastered it already. Right, let's take a little look at this then and give a hello world program a go. So the first thing we need to do is import the standard library. So in C, of course, we do include stdio, standard input output. In Zig, it looks a little bit different. It looks a little bit confusing at first glance, but I can see how this could be useful, because quite literally what it's doing is it's setting up a variable which will contain the library that we're importing. So obviously we're going to use const here because that's something that should not change. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something like std, it could be anything, but well, I think anyway, I don't know how it works here. We'll give this a go. Import. Again, it's strange to me the way in which this is done. So, for example, I wonder what Andrew Kelly's logic was behind having, you know, the at import. I don't even know what that means. So this already looks very confusing, but we'll kind of go with the flow. And again, you guys in the comments can let me know. Public. So I imagine this just makes it so that it's, I imagine the main function has to be public. I'm sure I've read before that if you don't use public, by default it's private. I'm not too sure. We're gonna figure this out as we go along. It just looks so confusing already out of the box. So I mean, you know, the bits that are straight away, you know, jumping out to me is this init. Obviously, we're using, you know, this kind of module that we've imported, or you know, standard library we've imported, and then we're doing .process.init. Don't know what the purpose of this is. Obviously, I'd imagine if it's void, it means it could return, or returns no particular data type. And then we're using try then, and again, it just looks like a lot for a simple hello world, but who knows? We'll see where this goes. So let's public function main init std.process.init with capital I, void. Again, you know, straight away I just know this is going to be quite confusing, but we'll have a look. I don't even know if I have to do capitals. It's just looking. I think I do. We'll try capitals. If it don't work, we'll change it. Standard output then. Write streaming. All init.io hello world \n. Oh wait, I didn't include speech marks. Okay, right, I think that's it. Missing the semicolon at the end, but if I can get to it, why can't I get to it? What's happening here? I just do that. That won't work. Right, can I go down here? No, I can't. If only I knew how to use NeoVim like a pro, we wouldn't have these issues. Right, hello world, and then the semicolon. Okay, fantastic. Right, so in theory then this should work now. Should I give this a go? Probably. I don't know if there's a way I can zoom out there, but I can't. Right, let's give this a go then. So we need to do zig build, the executable, and then we're going to say what file we're going to build, which is our hello.zig, and that's done it. So if I run this now, hello, and we've got it printed, which is fantastic. Now, again, let's try and break this down a bit because this makes very little sense to me. So what I'm going to do is just simply copy and paste this, and again, our good old trusty AI mode here, and we'll say, can you break down this for me, please? Gotta be kind to the AI. You never know if it's going to take over the world, of course. Right, the code is a hello world program written in the Zig program language. Right, so this makes sense to me. That's fine. So I know that in theory, if I wanted to, this should work the exact same. So if I was to do, I don't know, standard, and I change this should work, unless it doesn't. Standard, and the same, where else? I know it was somewhere else. Standard, and I think that's it. So unless I've made a mistake here, that should work just the same, and it does, and I can run it. That's fine. Okay, so that's quite cool. I can see the use, you know, the usefulness of that, I suppose. I mean, in C you don't have to do like std dot anything, so I don't know if I like that actually, but who knows. That makes sense. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so import standard library, the import built-in function, so that's what that means. At import is a built-in function which loads the Zig standard library, and it saves it to wherever we give the variable name as being. So that makes sense. It assigns it to a constant variable named std, so you can use it, use its tools later. Okay, so that makes sense. So that's pretty straightforward. This is the bit that I get, of course, we're creating a main function. This bit's confusing to me. This bit's confusing to me. And again, not used to using public functions and private functions, so this will be quite interesting. So pub fn main, this declares the public main function, which is the mandatory entry point where your program starts executing in it. So that makes sense. Okay, so it's effectively just creating the main function. For whatever reason, it has to be public. I assume that's the same with most languages, actually, that use that kind of standard there then. Init std.process, init std.process.init. This passes an initialization struct into the function starting in newer Zig versions. This is how your program receives access to system environment arguments, memory allocators, and the I/O system interface. So let's just try something a sec. So I'm going to play around with things. If I were to get rid of that, what happens? Error. Okay. So hello.zig. I mean, this I can see as being useful, because in C you wouldn't even get this. So this is quite nice. So we have an error, which is a use of undeclared integer identifier. Init. Right. Okay. So we're using init in the program somewhere. Let's have a little look. We're using it here. Init.io. Okay. Right. That makes sense. So suppose we say init std.process.init. If anyone's got other ways that they go about learning a new programming language, let me know as well, because this to me is like all new. I mean, I never really pick up new languages. I've been learning C for a while, so this is all new. So far I'm liking Odin a little bit more, just because this seems like you have to kind of decipher what's going on a bit. Right, so passes an initialization struct. So why do we need a struct though? So initialization struct into the function, starting newer Zig versions. Okay. I feel like this is the part that would confuse most people going from C to Zig, if I'm not wrong. If anyone's made the jump, curious to see how you found it. So newer versions of Zig, init, standard, because I don't know if I'm going crazy. Like, I know I said I haven't used Zig, but I'm sure like when I first initially used it, I'd installed it and this wasn't included, it wasn't necessary, which makes sense because the newer version of Zig. But again, I want to know why it is that they've added that in. It's a mandatory function parameter for main that completely changes how a program starts up. So instead of accessing global system state, your program receives all its initial operating system resources inside a single secure capsule. So what is inside standard.process.init? When the Zig runtime starts your program, it populates this init struct with everything your application needs to talk to the outside world. Right, okay. So that's just effectively populating everything the program needs. It acts as a gateway to 3 core pillars. The input-output engine, which gives you a handle input-output gives you a handle to the input-output event loop runtime. This is why you had to pass init input-output into write. Right, so we pass in that into write stream in all, and then we pass through hello world as well. Is there any documentation on that? What was it? Right, let's try this. Zig, cd. That's so cool though. That is pretty nice. So it runs in the browser. I like that. Right, so what am I looking for? We need... can I search? IO, I see now, IO. Right, IO, and inside IO, what was it we were looking for? Standard IO dot file dot standard output. Right, okay, this sort of makes sense. So it's in the standard library, it's to do with input output file. Don't know what the purpose of that is. So Yeah, this is very confusing. Very confusing indeed. I heard like somebody saying, I forget who it was, it might have just been a random Reddit post, but it was like, to become a good programmer, all you need is to like have the ability to just read instructions. And that is something that I'm terrible at, in the sense of, like, you know, when you're a kid and you get a Lego set, the first thing you want to do, at least what I would do, is just try to put together something, and I would be very reluctant to look at the instructions. And that habit that I picked up from those early ages of being like 2, 3, 4, it's just ruined me in terms of having the patience to look through this stuff. But we'll figure it out. So right, so if I go to right streaming all, then so it's just so much to look at. So we have standard, which is the input output library. We have IO. So if I go to IO, what's here? IO dot file dot standard output. Right. Yeah, it's hard to make sense of this. Right, okay, we'll just kind of ignore that for a second then. I know it's probably not wise to do, and I know somebody could probably explain this to me. If somebody could explain this to me better than the way I'm interpreting it now and the way Google AI is making it out, I'd be absolutely impressed. So, right. So, what is inside standard pro? Oh, wait, I just realized. How did that run? Because I didn't change that, or did I? It just ran. Or did it not? I don't know if I'm going crazy now. Let's see if that works. It works, so I don't know what happened there. Right, anyway, we'll ignore that. I must have made a mistake, or I've changed something. I moved on. Right, so we have public function main, init standard. So initialize the standard.process.init, and what that does is it populates a struct with everything your application needs to talk to the outside world. See, that's just very vague. It acts as a gateway, 3 core pillars: input, output, allocator, and args. So the input output engine, the system allocator, and the command line argument. So the input output gives you a handle, which is init.io, which we can pass into this function when we call it. So if I was to go back here and type in right streaming all, so standard input to file to write. That's missing out standard out, but okay, so it's equivalent to writing. I'm literally sweating. It's that hot here in the UK, so I hope everyone's staying well and healthy. It's absolutely awful out here. Right, so you pass through a file, input output. You see, this can't be the right one. Right, let's try one more time. So d.io.file.stdout. So this is just. Is this just a like? My issue is that like in other languages, like C for example, it's just printf. That's all I have to do. And I know that there's a purpose behind this, but it's not made clear. It's really not made clear. At least I don't know if it is, and I'm just being a bit of an idiot. So if anyone can say if they've had the same. So, right, this might help actually. So why does Zig do this to philosophy? Most programming languages like C, Go, or Python just let you call print or fetch web page from anywhere because they rely on hidden global state. Zig explicitly rejects this for 2 main reasons: so security and sandbox safety. Because resources are passed directly into main, a function cannot access the file system, network, or memory unless you explicitly pass a reference down to it. So this design makes it incredibly easy to sandbox code. If you import a third-party library, you can guarantee it cannot spy on your files or access the internet simply by not passing it your init resources. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. That was something just as simple as that is why I needed to understand what the value of doing all this was. And I guess, like I said, it's to do with safety, security, and more protections that other programming languages don't give you. And the other one then is flawless concurrency and async. So Zig is designed for high-performance asynchronous programming by passing the init.io context into streaming functions. The compiler knows exactly which asynchronous event loop runtime is handling the data transfer, removing the need for heavy background runtime engines. Okay. Here's actually, let's see the other pieces. So const allocator, here's our init.allocator, const args. Okay. Okay. Yeah, look, I'm still not going to change my mind. That is very confusing, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's gonna. I don't know if that's going to annoy people, but to me, that is extremely confusing. Right, we'll move on from that then. Okay, so quite literally, you know, we're referring to the standard library, talking about input output. We're outputting a file. Is right streaming all right? I'm going to do some digging around and I'm going to come back and see if I can explain this. Right. Right. The best that I've got to make from anything online is that this is effectively saying get the terminal output, and this is saying, sorry, this bit is saying write hello world to the output stream. That's all I can make of it at the moment. Again, it's a lot, and it seems like a lot to take in personally. Don't know if I could even go into it with that much detail. So far, as a beginner, in all honesty, just like playing around with this and looking at this as a C alternative, I'm not convinced, purely from a beginner simplicity point of view. If you were to understand, for example, I would never encourage a student go learn Zig first for programming. I think it would just overwhelm somebody, and I think that you could certainly learn or get to grips with what's going on much easier with C. But yeah, that's quite a lot for such a simple program. Let's see what it says. Most of the time it is more appropriate to write to standard error rather than standard output, and whether or not the message is successfully written to the stream is irrelevant. Also, formatted printing often comes in handy. For this common case, there is a simpler API, which is maybe how it should be done in the first place. So let's give that a go. Which, and funny enough, that's not even using the init for the input output and allocated and so on. So maybe that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know. And funny enough, that's not even return a void, and that's something I didn't even look in. So let's have a little look at what that means. I don't know if it came back with anything on that actually. The void. So this is the return type. The not means the function can either return an error or return nothing. Okay, right. That's fair enough. Right, let's just do the dumber version for myself. Right, standard debug, and then we'll go to print, and then we'll say hello. No. S not \n. Don't know what the purpose of that is. We'll come to see that now. Oh wait, is it just gonna replace whatever that placeholder is with hello world? I imagine so. Let's have a little look. Okay, let's try building that again. Glimpse the dot. Right. So I imagine that, yeah, it's just effectively saying that whatever's... Oh, I've got two exclamation marks there, so it's going to be an error as well. Okay, I don't know what's going on. So it's saying std, right, it's because I've, rookie errors. There you go. Oops. Oh. And if we do that, hello. Fantastic. Okay, yeah, so that makes more sense. I mean, I don't know if I was just kind of jumped into. So why is it that it shows that at first, though? So most of the time it's appropriate to write the standard error rather than standard output. And whether or not the message is successfully written to the stream is irrelevant. Also, formatted printing often comes in handy for this common case. There's a simpler API. Why did they not do that in the first place, though? So the purpose of this seems... Gonna be lazy here and just ask. This is why I should probably take up streaming, because yeah, because people could explain this to me while we're streaming and it might just make things a bit easier. Right, so the major difference between the two is the intended purpose and how they interact with the operating system. One is built for production-ready, safe, asynchronous environments, while the other is built for quick debugging and logging. So the init version primarily is real application logic and production releases. Second code is quick debugging, testing, and scratchpad scripts. Okay, so it's just purely down to... right, okay, so that's what was referring to standard error, so this is what this is doing. The input-output context explicitly tracked and driven via init.io, whereas this is implicit and managed and globally blocked. So it's just all about writing things clean, safe, and production ready, whereas this is something that probably would be done by someone like myself if you're just experimenting and just print it to the console simply. That makes sense. Okay, I think it's probably best to leave it there. In all honesty, I don't know how I feel about this, and I know I didn't give her as much of a chance as I did Odin. Comments, which is just where you do 3, is it? Can allow you to do multiple rows. Unattached. I mean, I feel like these, in all fairness, this documentation compared to Odin's is just different. I feel like Odin's documentation could almost be like a book where you pick it up and you read it and you understand what's going on. You might have to do some digging around to figure things out, but there's a lot more information breaking down each part, whereas here it just seems very, you should know your stuff. Here you go ahead and figure out how these features are useful. Or, you know, I mean, again, I could be getting things completely twisted, completely wrong. Let me know what you think, guys. I mean, I really don't know if I'm convinced personally. And I think I should leave it there for this video, albeit the short one. But I'm glad I've managed to post for you guys, and hopefully you found it somewhat interesting. I'll see you guys in the next episode. It'll be very fun to kind of start a new C programming video, new series. We'll see what happens. Right, I know this has been a very, very short video compared to what I've done with Odin, and I want to know what you guys think. I mean, I know I didn't give her a fair chance like I did with Odin. You know, Odin, I was kind of more dedicated. I wanted to learn a bit more about it. But in all honesty, from a purely pedagogical perspective, I would not encourage people who are beginners to learn Zig unless you are very familiar with computers, again, at a low level, and you have a good understanding of C. Then I think maybe Zig would be good for you. It's not an object-oriented language, of course, because there's no classes and such like that. However, the way it reads, especially, you know, like this, standard.io.file.standardoutput.write streaming all, and then, you know, it just takes all of that to get a simple hello world working. It just seems much more confusing than, you know, a language such as Odin and C. I can imagine this being quite frustrating to learn, but I'm sure there's great courses online and great videos that people have made explaining different things. I'll have to look into that if I ever decide to pick up Zig, which I probably won't for a long while. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I will be bringing out a new C programming series, so please stay tuned for that. It'll be very fun. We're going to be looking at doing some sort of graphics stuff with Raylib, and, you know, see where it goes. I mean, I'm excited. Again, picking up new projects, learning things that we haven't touched before. If you guys have got any questions, leave them in the comments. If you picked up on anything that I've said that is ridiculous, you can leave them in the comments. Again, I have no clue. if if Zig is the language for me, I don't think it ever will be, in all honesty. But we're going to get back to the basics, get back to C, the best language that is out there. Thank you guys for all your support. Again, if you've got any suggestions in terms of what you want from me from content, please let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video already. Thank you for being so supportive. Bye.